Now, if you are new to my channel, please remember to like, subscribe, share, and comment. Now, to our first question. In standard form, 0.0357 is written as. Now, what do we know about standard form? For us to have standard form, it has to be something of this form where it is a times 10 to the power of n, right? Where a has to be a number from 1 to 9, right? Now, what do I mean by this? It means that the digit in front of the decimal point should be a number from 1 to 9. It cannot be greater. So, in other words, if we want to write this decimal in standard form, how can we get a number that is between 1 or from 1 to 9 in front of the decimal point? We can simply multiply this by 100, right? So if we multiply this by 100, what will happen is that it will move the decimal point 2 places to the left, right? So when you move it 2 places to the left, the decimal point will now be between 3 and 5. So you know that our answer is going to be 3.57 multiplied by 10 to some power. Or you could look at it as the amount of jumps. So we have 1, 2 jumps we made, so that's the power. But to which direction? We went to the right. So if we move to the right, then the power is going to be negative. If we move to the left, then the power is going to be positive. So which answer would this be? This would be C. Now, an easy way to do this question, you could use elimination to complete this question by looking at the power. So first, we know that the power should be 2. It's going to be negative 2. But when you look at the first option, that's negative 4. So A could not be the answer, right? You look at the second option, that's negative 3. That could not be the answer as well. And when you look at the third option, that's negative 1. So that could not be the answer either. Now, this technique is very useful, eliminating what is not the answer. And then you will automatically leave with what is the answer. So this is a good technique to use when you are doing multiple choice questions. And we'll be using this technique as we go along to show you that we can solve some of these questions without even working them out. Express 0.15 as a fraction in its lowest term. Now, a simple trick is to just draw a line under the decimal that is given. Put 1 for the decimal point and 0 for each digit that comes after. So we'll have 1, 0 for the 1 and a 0 for the 5. So what is our fraction? We are now seeing that 0.15 is going to equal to 15 over 100, right? And then the question says that we must put the fraction in its lowest term. So note that both the numerator and the denominator is a multiple of 5. That means we can divide both the numerator and the denominator by 5. All right. So what is 5 into 15? That's going to leave us with 3. What's 5 into 100? That's going to leave us with 20. So our answer is going to be 3 out of 20. All right. 608 skittles are shared in the ratio 3 to 5. The largest share of skittle is, now the smallest share is going to be 3. Therefore, the largest share is going to be 5. Right? Now, when you are thinking of ratio, think of fraction. Right? Now, these are the parts. So what is the total ratio here? The total ratio would be equal to 3 plus 5, which will give us 8. Right? Now, they ask us for the largest share. The largest share is represented by the number 5. but that's 5 parts out of a total of 8, right? And what is being shared? 608 Skittles. So we can say, I'm going to use LS for larger share. We can say that the larger share then is going to equal to 5 parts out of a total of 8 parts. And what is being shared? So it is of this. So times 608. Now all you need to do is to just cancel and simplify, and you will be finished. So here you can see that 8 into 8 is 1. How many groups of 8 can we get out of 60? You can use estimation. 8 is 64. So therefore, we are going to get 7 groups, right? What's 8 times 7? That is just going to be 56. So we have 4 left, right? So we put it here in front of the 8. That gives us 48. How many groups of 8 can we get out of 48? 8 sixes is 48. Therefore, we can get 6 groups, right? So 8 into 608 will give us 76. So what do we left back with? We left back with 5 times 76. And what is 5 times 76? That's what's going to give us 380. So therefore, our answer here is going to be D. If 325 times 74.81 equal 24,313.25, then 3.25 times 0.7481 equal. This is a question that you can actually figure out the answer without actually working it out. Now, when you multiply 2 decimal, what we know is that the result should have a sum of the 2 decimal places that was given in the 2 numbers. What do I mean by this? Let's observe this number. How many digits come after the decimal point? That's 2. So that means this number has 2 dp, right? Now, how many number come after the decimal point? It's going to be 1, 2, 3, 4. So that means this number has 4 decimal place. It means that the solution, therefore, should have a sum of these 2. So it should have 2 plus 4, which is going to be 6 decimal places. Right? So we could use the elimination technique to work this problem out. Now let's start from option D. How many digit comes after the decimal point? That's going to be 1, 2, 3. So therefore, that's not the answer. Let's look at C. 1, 2, 3, 4. So therefore, that's not the answer. Let's look at part B. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So therefore, that's not the answer. Let's look at part A. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So therefore, that is the answer. But my question is, what if there were a 2 solution that has 6 decimal places? How would we go about doing this question? Now let's observe what was given. They give us 325 times 74.81. What did they do to 325 to end up with 3.25? They actually divided this number by 100. And what did they do to 74.81 to end up with 0.7481? They also divide this number by 100. Right? Now, whatever we do to this, then we also have to do it to the solution. So, in essence, what did they divide all of this by? They actually divided by 100 times 100, which is actually work out to be 10,000, right? So they were actually dividing by 10,000. So because we know that we also have to divide the solution here by 10,000 as well. Now, how many zeros do we have here? We have 1, 2, 3, 4. So dividing by 1,000, the zero tells us how many jumps we should make to the left. So if we are going to jump to the left, it's going to be 1, 2, 3, 4. So where is now the decimal point? It's between 2 and 4. So clearly you can see that, therefore, the answer is going to be 2.431325. So that's how you would work it out. All right. 12.5% of a sum of money is 60. What is the sum of money? Now, to work out this question, we must have a clear understanding of what the question is saying. So it says 12.5% of a sum of money is 60. What is this really saying? Is here means equal, right? So what this is saying, it is saying 12.5% is equal to $60. That is what that is saying. Then the second part of the question says, what is the sum of money? What are they really asking us for? The sum of money represents what? The whole. That means they are asking us for 100% of the money. That's the question that they are asking there. What is 100% of this money? Now, given that they give us 12.5% of the money, then, and we want to find 100%, if we find 1%, then it would be easy to find 100%, which would give us the sum of money, because the sum of money is represented by 100%. So how could we find 1%? We could find 1% by dividing both sides here by 12.5. So we're going to divide this side by 12.5. And we're also going to divide this side by 12.5. So 12.5 divided by 12.5, that will give us 1. So that's just 1%, right? Now, 12.5 can be written as a decimal. So we're going to use decimal to make our calculation much easier. So it's going to be 60 divided by 12.5, right? Now, what do we know when we are dividing by a decimal? We should always convert the decimal to a whole number. So how can we convert this decimal to a whole number? We can convert this decimal to a whole number by multiplying by a power of 10. So we can just multiply this by 10. But whatever we do to the denominator, we have to do it to the numerator. So we have to multiply the numerator by 10 as well. Now, by multiplying the denominator by 10, what it does, it appears as if the decimal point moves from in front of 5 behind 5. So what we'll end up with now is the number 125 as a whole number. And the numerator will now end up being 600, because 60 times 10 is 600. Now, by doing this, we know that this is still going to equal to 1%. And now we can simply reduce this, right? So if we reduce this quickly, we can see that 125, we can divide by 25. So we can see 25 into 125, that will give us 5, right? 25 into 60, that will give us 2, remainder 10. And 25 into 100, that's going to give us 4. So now we can further break down this number by doing a little bit of long division here, which is to say, all right, take 5 to divide 24. Now, how many groups of 5 can we get out of 24? That's just going to be 4. Because what? 4 times 5, that's going to give us 20. When we subtract 24 minus 20, that leaves us with 4. How many groups of 5 can we get out of 4? We can't, so we put a point and place a 0. How many groups of 5 can we get out of 40? That would be 8. And 8 times 5 would be 40. And when we subtract, we have nothing left, right? So what we are seeing is that we now know that 1% of the money, 1% of the money is going to equal to $4.80. So therefore, 100% of the money is going to equal to $4.80 times 100, which is going to give us $480. So therefore, D is going to be our answer. There are 40 students in a class. Boys make up 40% of the class. If 25% of the boys wear shirt jacks, how many boys wear shirt jacks? First of all, you have to interpret the question properly. They tell us the total number of students in the class, and they tell us the number of boys in terms of percentage, right? So we would need to find out how many boys in the class. So to find the number of boys in the class, that would equal to 40% of the total. And 40% is just 40 over 100 times the total number of students, which would be 40, right? Here, 0 will cancel out this 0, and this 0 will cancel out this one over here. So what we left back with is just 4 times 4, which is going to give us 16. So what we do know is that there are 16 boys in the class. Now the second part of the question says 25% of the boys wear shirt jacks, right? So they are saying 25% of the number of boys wear shirt jacks. So how many boys wear shirt jacks? We now need to go and find 25% of 16. So we know that boys, can write it right here, boys who wear shirt jacks is going to equal to 25%. 25% is just 25 over 100 of the number of boys, which is going to be 16. But what's 25 over 100? That's just a quarter of 100, right? Times 16. And what's quarter of 16? That's just going to give us 4. So our answer is just going to be A here. 3 over 5 all squared is equal to. What is this square telling us? This square is telling us how many times we must multiply the base. So what this means is that 3 over 5 all squared is going to equal to 3 over 5 in bracket times 3 over 5. Now, do you multiply two fractions? You multiply numerator by numerator and denominator by denominator. So 3 times 3, that will give us 9. And 5 times 5, that will give us 25. So our answer is 9 over 25, which is D in this case. What percentage of 280 is 700? The easiest way to do this question is to write 700 as a percentage of 280. So 700 as a percentage of 280 would be 700 over 280 times 100. Now, what can we do? All we need to do is to simplify, and we are finished. So we know that 0 will cancel 0, so we're left back with 70 over 28. Both 70 and 28 is a multiple of 7, so therefore they can be divided by 7. So 7 into 70, that will give us 10, and 7 into 28, that will give us 4. And 4 into 4, that will give us 1, and 4 into 100, that will give us 25. What do we left back with? We just left back with 10 times 25. And what's 10 times 25? That's just going to be 250%. So our answer here is going to be B. The value of 79.94 times 0.5 is approximately. Now, they are not asking us for the exact value here. They are asking us for an approximate value. So 79.94, that could be estimated to be just 80, right? We could round it out to the nearest whole number. So what we'd end up with is just what? 80 times 0.5. But what's 0.5? 0.5 is just a half as a fraction. So really and truly, what are we finding? We are just finding half of 80, which is equal to what? 40. So therefore, our answer is going to be C. In a school, the ratio of the number of students to the number of teachers is 25:1. If there are 800 students in the school, how many teachers are there? First, we need to have a clear idea of what the question is really saying. So what does this 25 really represent? This 25 represents the number of students, right? And what does this one really represent? This one represents the number of teachers, right? What does the 800 represent? That represents the number of students. So what do we know? We know that we have 25 students mapping onto one teacher. Now they give us 800 students. So what we can do is to take this 800 to divide it by 25, right? And what's 800 divided by 25? 25 into 25, that's 1. 25 into 80, that will give us 3, remainder 5. So put it in front of the 0. We have 50, so 25 into 50, that will be 2. So therefore, 25 into 800 would give us 32, right? And since for every 25 students, we have one teacher, then therefore, for 800 students, we're going to have 32 teachers, right? So our answer here is going to be 32. But there are several ways that you could approach this question. You could do this question another way by saying, okay, they give us 25:1. Therefore, 25:1 is going to equal to 800 to x, because we don't know the amount of teachers. So since these two are equal, we could represent this as a fraction. What's 25:1? That's just 25/1, which is equal to 800 over x, right? So 25/1 is just 25, right? Now we want to solve for x. So what can we do? We can multiply both sides by x. So if we multiply both sides by x, which is multiplying this side by x, and also multiplying this side by x, what we'll end up with is just x times 25, which will give us 25x is going to equal to 800 because the x will cancel out here. And because we want to solve for x, we now need to divide both sides by 25. So we divide this by 25 and also divide the 800 by 25. Therefore, 25 into 25 will give us 1. So we're left back with x. And 25 into 800 will give us 32. So that's another way in which we could find our answer there. The number 8.15072 written correctly to 3 decimal places is, now we want 3 decimal places, so we need to count. This is 1, 2, 3. But because we want 3 decimal places, we have to look at the 4th decimal place, right? So we'll focus on this 7. Since this 7 is 5 or more, then the rule is we must increase the previous digit by 1. So what's 0 plus 1? That would just be 1. So our answer here is going to be 8.151. That would be B here. If 780 is shared in a ratio of 2 to 3 to 5, then the difference between the largest share and the smallest share is? Now, what is the largest share? The largest share would be 5. What is the smallest share? The smallest share would be 2, right? So the ratio 2. Now we need to find what? The difference between both, right? So we need to find the difference between both. That's what they asked us for. But in terms of money, what is the largest share? We don't know. So we need to find that. And in terms of money, what is the smallest share? We don't know. So we need to find that. And then we subtract between the two. Now, every time you get a question like this, when you get something to share using ratio, you should always think fraction. So we have a whole. What is the whole? The whole is the sum of all the ratios. So it's going to be 5 plus 3 plus 2, right? So it's going to be 2 plus 3 plus 5, which is going to give us 10. So the total ratio is 10, which means that the whole is 10, right? Now, if the whole is 10, it means that 780 is equal to 10, right? Now we can do this easy. So what am I saying? I'm saying that 10 parts, right? You could write it out. 10 parts is equal to the total money that they give us, which is the whole, which is $780. So if 10 parts is equal to 780, what would 1 part equal to? All we need to do here is to divide both sides by 10. So if we divide both sides by 10, you can see that 10 into 10 will give us 1. So therefore, 1 part out of the 10 is going to equal to 780 divided by 10, which will just give us $78. Right? So 1 share represents $78. So what's the smallest share? The smallest share is 2. So it's going to be 2 times 78, right? So for the smallest share, we know, let's use S, that S for smallest share. We know that the smallest share is going to be 2 times what 1 share is, which is 78, right? And what's 2 times 78? 2 8s, that's going to be 16, carry 1, 2 7, that's 14 plus 1, that's going to be $156. And what's the largest share? We're going to use L, that S for largest share. The largest share is going to be 5 times what 1 share is. So it's going to be 5 times 78. And what is 5 times 78? 5 8s, that's going to be 40. So it's going to be 0, carry 4. 5 7, that's 35, plus 4 That's going to give us 39. So that's $309. Are we finished here? No. Need to find the difference between the two. So we're going to use D for difference. So difference is going to be the largest share, which is 390, minus the smallest share, which is 156. And then to do is subtract. We're going to take 1 from the 9, leave us with 8. Put it here, we get 10. What is 10 minus 6? That's going to leave us with 4. All right. What is 8 minus 5? That's going to leave us with 3. And what is 3 minus 1? That's going to leave us with 2. So our answer is 234. In scientific notation, 190.57 is written as. Now just note that scientific notation means standard form. Now we know that the number in front of the decimal point has to be a number from 1 to 9, right? So let's use elimination to make our option much easier. Now, when you look at option A, the number in front of the decimal point, that's a 0, which is not 1 to 9. Sorry, so there shouldn't be a 1 here. So it should be 1 to 9. So 0, so therefore is not going to be the answer. Now, when we look at B, there's a 1 there. When we look at C, there is 19, right? And 19 does not fall between 1 to 9. Therefore, C is not going to be the answer. So it is between B and D. But how can I get the decimal point between 1 and 9? I can make how many jumps? I can make 1, 2 jumps to the left, right? So remember the amount of jumps is the power. So it's going to be this one and not D. So the answer is going to be B. All right. If 60% of a number of beads is 180, what is 150% of the number of beads? Let's break down this question. Simple. If 60% of a number of beans is 180, what is this saying? This is simply saying that 60% is equal to 180. That's what that means. And what are they asking us for? They are asking us for 150% of beans. So that's what we want. That's the question mark. So how can this information here help us to determine this information over here? Since we have 60% of beans, then we can find what 1% of beans would be by just dividing this side by 60 and also dividing this side by 60. So by dividing both sides by 60, 60 divided by 60 will leave us with 1%. And 180 divided by 60 will just leave us back with 3. So we know that for every 1% that we have 3 beans. That's what this is saying. So for every 1% that we have 3 beans. So for 150%, how many beans would we have? We'd have 3 times 150. So for 150%, then that would equal to 3 times 150, which would give us what? What is 3 times 150? 3 times 150, that's what's going to give us 450. So our answer here is 450. The exact value of 34.85 divided by 1.7, all of that divided by 1,000 is, best approach to do this question is to work out the numerator first. So it would be 34.85 divided by 1.7. Remember, it's a CXC multiple choice exam. You do not have the use of a calculator. So how do you do this quickly? You can do this quickly by moving the decimal place 1 unit to the right. But whatever you do to this side, you have to do it to this side by moving the decimal place 1 unit to the right as well. So what do we end up with? Here we'll end up with 348.5 divided by 17. Then now this would be easy to divide. Now 17 into 17, that will give us 1. How many groups of 17 can we get out of 34? That would be about 2, right? And 2 times 17 will give us 24. How many groups of 17 can we get out of 8? That would be 0. And then we carry out back our decimal place point, in the answer. And then we ask ourselves, how many groups of 17 can we get out of 85? And that would be 5, right? So in other words, 348.5 divided by 17 will give us 20.5. So our numerator is now going to be 20.5, all of that divided by 1,000. Now the easiest way to look at this is to see that these zeros are moving the decimal place to the left. So when we divide by powers of 10, it moves the decimal place to the left. So we have 1, 2, 3 zeros. That means we're going to shift the decimal place 3 places to the left. That's 1. That's another one. And that's another one. So for the third place, we're going to place a 0 for placeholder. So our answer, we're just going to put a 0 in front of this point. So it would be 0.0205 as our answer. Which option is that? That's going to be B here. 12.7 divided by 0.01 is equal to, again, when you're dividing by decimal, we're going to convert the decimal to whole number by just shifting the decimal place 2 units to the right, so that the decimal point is now behind the 1 here. So this number becomes 1. And then we still have our division sign, and whatever we do to this, we have to do it to this. So we have to shift 1, 2 place here. So put a placeholder. So it becomes 1,270 divided by 1, which is just 1,270. So that answer is C. What number must be added to 1 and 2 over 5 to give 2? Now, this question, what does 1 and 2 over 5 mean? 1 and 2 over 5 mean 1 whole plus 2/5 of a whole, right? So in other words, if we look at this from a graphical perspective, it means that we have 1 whole. So let's see, that's a square cake. And then we have another square cake, right? Which is the same size. That is divided into 5 equal parts. So that's 1 part, 2 part, 3 part. That's 5 equal part there. Now, so this is what? 2 parts out of 5. So we know that that's 2 parts out of 5. So they are saying to us, what must be added to 1 and 2/5 to give 2? Then it would be the remaining parts, which is 3 parts out of 5, right? For this to be 2, because we have 1 whole and a fraction of a whole, right? So it would be 3 parts out of 5. Negative 1 over 5 cube is the same as, what is this 3 telling us to do? Multiply the base by itself 3 times. So we're going to have negative 1/5 times negative 1/5 times negative 1/5. But what's the cube of 5? That's 125. So clearly we know the denominator here for A is 15. So A is not the answer. Now for C, it's 15, so C is not the answer. It's between B and D. But which one is the correct one? Because it's an odd number of power, it means that when you're multiplying a negative number with an odd number that is raised to an odd number of power, then the result should be negative. So therefore, it's going to be B and not D. All right. Negative 2 all squared plus negative 4 all squared equal. What's negative 2 all squared? That's just going to give us a positive 4. What's negative 4 all squared? That's just going to give us 16. What's 4 plus 16? That's just going to give us 20. So our answer here is going to be D.